I have a lot of things I witnessed in the NFL that I want to bring up too, Rich.
The Eagles pulled away in the second half bigly. For a minute, that game was tied, if you remember.
Bigly.
Am I right by saying, it was 17-17 at some point. I said, if Joe Burrow finishes strong, they'll be 4-4, and people wrote them off, and we said, well, don't discount Cincinnati. Well, 3-5 is a lot different than 4-4, and in the second half, the Eagles took over. Hurts looked good. Saquon. Eagles look like they are going to battle for that NFC East against Washington. So that's a battle right there.
I have a question for you. Danny G, I feel like your Chiefs were in that game. Your Raiders were in that game against the Chiefs.
A faux pas.
Chiefs win. Mahomes, 262 yards, 2 tutties. Kelsey back, his best game so far. Like, he's the guy, if he starts getting hot, it was National Tight Ends Day. I never heard of it until yesterday.
They have it every year.
National Tight Ends Day? I don't remember that. Did we talk about that?
This has been going for like 3 to 5 years.
I think we talked about it on our show last year.
I'm sure we talked about it, but
George
I'm like,
Kittle
really?
started it.
Hey, dude. Okay, John Legend. Did you hear the John Legend story?
What was the John Legend story?
Chrissy Teigen called him out because apparently he didn't know what a grand slam home run was until Freddie Freeman hit one.
Are you serious? What do you think? It was a breakfast?
Yes.
Seriously? How are you going to compare me to that? I'm sure I talked about National Tight Ends Day. I'm just sort of throwing out there the same thing Jason Kelsey threw out there over the weekend on New Heights. He's like, it's ridiculous. Like, there's a holiday for everything.
The most yards caught by tight ends in NFL history yesterday. Coincidence?
I don't know.
I think not. But then again, Covino, Kelsey always goes off against the Raiders.
Okay, but 10 receptions, 90 yards, a tutty. Is he back? If he is,
was he ever gone,
slowly getting better. Well, he wasn't doing jack shit with the squad.
They're undefeated.
But now if they're working with Kelsey and he's having a game, then maybe the Chiefs are chiefing again. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if they ever stopped chiefing because they just know how to win.
Kidding me? They looked very beatable until yesterday. Are you John Legend or something?
I was a little confused by his celebration in the end zone, Kelsey's, because Hopkins just got there. It's cool. I'm sure they bonded after a couple of days of Hopkins being on the team, but he was beating Kelsey's chest for him. Did you see that?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't help but notice because he's criticized so often that Kelsey had a good game. He looked like he looked a little old to me, to be honest.
The Raiders defense had a pretty good day themselves. You saw that interception from Merrick, and they were at, the 4 or 5 yard line. They had 4 chances to get that ball in there. And Luke Getsy called the same play over and over and over again. It was pretty brutal.
That was the moment where you're like, oh, man.
And Bowers, again, one of the best tight ends it's looking like in football right now. And they're not drawing up any play to try to free him up and get Bowers into the end zone.
Danny,
that had me going,
We hit our teaser bet that we made last week, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
We did Raiders plus 15 and the Lions -6, and the Lions put a whooping on Tennessee. Remember we said, like, that game could get ugly.
That's right.
52-14. So I feel like the Lions look like arguably the strongest team in the NFC right now.
We were right about the rivalry game, too, on Friday. We said the 9.5, 10 points was too much for the Chiefs, and turned out to be right on that.
Falcons-Bucks, another good division game that came down to the fourth quarter, and it just seems like without some of his weapons, Baker maybe forcing some passes, a couple picks, but, Kirk Cousins playing like a guy that didn't tear his Achilles a year ago. So congrats to the Falcons. They are in sole possession of first in that division.
Maybe just got the Buccaneers number, but looking good. How about Anthony Richardson tapping out for a second? You don't normally see that. Do you think that's just responsible, or do you think that's lame when your leader's like, I need a break? What do you think about that? In their 23-20 loss to the Texans.
I'm tired.
I know Pat McAfee was tweeting about it. He was going off because he's like, we've never seen a quarterback take a playoff like this before.
That's the thing. So do you say, well, maybe he really needed it, right? Like, there's certain things I don't know. I still didn't get the answer to this. Like, we speculated earlier on one of the worst moves in the World Series was Aaron Boone taking out Garrett Cole. He was like 80-something pitches in. If Garrett Cole said, hey, I'm done, I'm gassed, I'm good, then all right, it makes sense. But you don't see athletes do that often when they have that competitive spirit. You rarely see quarterbacks saying they need a breather. Maybe he got the wind knocked out of him. I don't know the reasoning, but that was odd to see. Made me say, Anthony Richardson, again, tapped out in a loss. That was a weird situation. DB, you got updates on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. So
Shane Steichen even said after the game that they were going to run the ball anyway because it was 3rd and goal from the 23-yard line. So he even thought that it was a little bit odd that Richardson would ask out. And then Steichen today, because Richardson had such a poor game passing, wouldn't commit to him being their starter on Sunday night when they face the Vikings. Said right now he's their starter, but they're evaluating everything at this point. So just an odd situation, especially because they were just going to hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor anyway.
In his head, you think?
Do I think it's in Anthony Richardson's head?
Is he in his own head? Is what I'm
No.
saying.
What I do think, though, is that it's that maybe he just didn't grasp the team concept and how important the quarterback is. It's just like of being your responsibility. We've all seen it in a basketball game, so maybe somebody needs a timeout. They'll be subbed in and out. They need a breather. But never the quarterback, if they said, I mean, and we've had guys who have ran all over the place. You don't see Josh Allen. You didn't see Mike Vick do it. You don't see any of those guys.
No, and if McAfee says he's never seen it,
Yeah.
that definitely makes you say, from a leadership standpoint, right? Hey,
Yes.
like we said, not hating, just stating. We got to mention what happened last night. We're all at Rich's house watching the Bears Commanders, and I decided right then and there I needed a break, actually. I'm like, all right, Rich's friends are chewing my ear off. I need a break. So I made a dip to the bathroom.
Oh, what'd you bring?
I did a how do you do. You know what how do you do is? I just needed a break. I just needed to look in the mirror. Hey, how do you do? So I look at myself in the mirror while I freshen up, wash my hands a little bit, and I hear Rich's place explode with cheers. I was like, oh my God, something happened. What did I miss? And Jaden Daniels pulls off a miracle play. But we got to talk about this Tyreek Stevenson thing, man. You know, what Dan Byer played before sort of changed my perspective a little bit because the story goes he was taunting the fans. In his explanation there, first off, he tweeted and apologized, right?
Yeah.
Tyreek Stevenson of the Bears. But in Dan Byer's soundbite, he says he wasn't taunting any fans. He was cheering on his fans. Not that it changes everything, but it does change something for me.
A little bit.
A little bit, right?
But I'm going to go as far as to say this.
It was amateur, man.
And I hate to say it. But with the competitiveness of the NFC North, I think that one single play, I'm trying not to be extreme here, like Gary Sharon.
More than words, bro.
But I think the Bears, that one play, took them out of the playoffs.
Ooh, really? You know, as a casual fan, just an onlooker of great games and great competition, it's cool to see these two young quarterbacks going at it and know that they're the future of the NFL.
COVINO.
I selfishly love that. But as far as the Bears not being in the playoffs because of that, that's tough. And I would hate to be Tyreek Stevenson right now.
Out!
Again, a 52-yard miracle Hail Mary to Noah Brown. Props to the Commanders pulling that off. But again, it wasn't that, according to him, it wasn't that he was antagonizing and smack-talking the Commanders fans. He was hyping up the Bears fans, like, come on, let's go, we got to stop this. And then he comes in, the play's already happening. 17 seconds of scrambling, by the way. I can make an egg in that amount of time. Yeah, let's count this down. 17 seconds, they say?
Let's hear it.
All right, well, let's take a listen.
Form at the goal line. They bring three. Daniels backing up. He's just going to have to let one fly. Goes to the right side. Steps away from the defenders. Gives himself some time. Now steps up, fires. Heads towards the end zone. It is...
Everybody goes nuts. Yo, honestly, Rich's house, everybody's house. Anyone watching that, anyone at the game, erupted the same way you saw Freddie Freeman and the Dodgers fans go berserk. The Commanders fans went berserk. There's so many great little clips of people just losing it. It was a great play. You know, Brown was in great position. They always say, bat it down, but I don't think Tyreek Stevenson, the angle he had from where he was running from, he never had a real chance to bat it down. It just tipped off his hands.
Did you see the picture I texted you? They closed in on a Commander's security guard.
Yeah.
Great shot of this guy losing his mind.
I'm telling you, I don't want to make Chicago upset. But that play, you are now out of the playoffs.
Man, that's tough.
You're out of the playoffs. You know why? Because you're in a division. Let's. I don't want to be stat boy here, but Detroit's 6-1. The Packers are 6-2. Minnesota's 5-2. You are now 4-3 and in last place. You would have been right there at 5-2. And you still have to play all those tough teams in your division, and you have to play the 49ers and a couple other teams that will be healthier later in the year. Chicago, for where they're at as a franchise, they couldn't afford that.
Keep this
that
in mind,
loss
too.
Right
we
there.
keep going back to that play, but that was a pretty bad fumble, too, when they had their who dropped that? They tried to pull the refrigerator Perry play.
Oh, yeah, that was the natural play to Doug Kramer, your offensive lineman who never carried the football.
Kramer
once.
drops the ball right there at the goal. Like, there's so many moments that they could have had it, but
Yeah, and to Rich's point about the standings, it's equally crushing because you kind of now expect the NFC South and the NFC West to maybe get one playoff team in. Maybe somebody gets hot at the end of the year, but it also helps the Commanders now. So in the NFC East, you have the Commanders and Eagles, both with those 2 losses. You lose a tiebreaker to Washington if it would come down to that for a wild card. Yeah,
you could have very well just played yourself out of the playoffs.
Sure.
it looks like
you're
Jaden
right.
Daniels. How about this? Jaden Daniels got that magic,
But
bro.
based on what DB said, look at the East. You could argue that the Eagles are playing well. Commanders are playing with some magic. You're going to get 2 teams at least from the NFC North. You'll get 1 team out of our division, Dan, the West, and 1 team out of the South. But, the Chicago Bears got to be hating that play. It's just so unfortunate. They'd be 5-2 if they just bat down that ball.
That was the worst part about the Stevenson thing was, aside from the taunting, but his responsibility was to box out Noah Brown. And instead, he just runs in from the side. And because he got a running start, guys, it's why I think his hand was the one that was up.
Yeah.
And then everybody else was kind of just in a bunch because they were all in the same area. But he had this running start to jump in, got higher than everybody.
Probably. He
tipped off
elevated
his
it.
hand. Yeah.
That sucked, man. So sorry to hear that, Bears fans. If
How
Rich
did
is
you
right.
react, DB? Because you were here doing doing your show, right?
We were on the air. And
Which is, by the way, why you weren't at my house. I did.
Yeah.
I had mentioned that these knuckleheads were going to swing by.
all good. I actually threw to Monty, I know this is a little inside, for the update because you're trying to play this out. There's stuff that you have to do.
Yeah.
You guys know, like, all right, when do we take this break? How do we? So I said, all right, let's go to Monty for the update. There's only 6 seconds left in this game. If anything crazy happens, we'll interrupt you. And so then we did interrupt her when there were 2 seconds left when they threw the out pass to Terry McLaurin. And then it was just craziness. Because you can't do play-by-play of it, but it's like, all right, Daniels is still scrambling around.
Yeah.
And then it was pure chaos.
He had so much time.
You know what? There's calls. I want to get to those. I want to throw 1 team out at you guys, and I want everyone to think about it for a second. And let me know where you think they're at. Because I think there's a lot of real interesting stuff going on in the NFC West. Because the 49ers, Seahawks, and Cardinals are all 4-4. The Rams, because of a bye week, are 3-4. So you could argue that division is, after half the season, it's a push. Like, new season for the NFC West, right? What do you think of the NFC West and how that plays out? Your Seahawks look cold. My Niners are about to get a little more healthy.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals are magically winning all these close games. Meanwhile, the Rams, with their wide receivers getting healthy, you could argue the Rams are the team now. So how do you see the NFC West unfolding? We'll get to that. Hey, let's add a Mitch real quick. Mitch in Jersey.
Hey, Mitch, things that made you go, this weekend.
Hey, how you doing?
We're
Hey,
good,
how
man.
you
Well,
doing?
How you doing?
Cold
How
from
you
Lowell, yeah.
doing?
How you doing?
I just want to call how bad the Raiders are. They should have gone after Sam Darnold. I know 2020 is a big difference, but they have no quarterback. They only have 2 good tight ends. One's not playing, and their running backs are weak.
You know, Danny, I don't know if you're going to have a bad enough record to get a top quarterback. Like, do you may be in that football purgatory where you're like 7-10?
And they're usually right there, like a game above 500, which landed them Bowers in the last draft. It seems like an obvious tank right now to finally get up into the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, Raiders live in that 7-10 to 10-7 purgatory.
It's a bad place to be. Like, if you're going to stink all the way right now to get your franchise quarterback, hopefully.
Jack in
you gotta stink like the great stink of
We
1858.
all know about that. Jack in L.A., wrap this up for now, and then we'll do more things that made you go, and play last one standing. What's up, bud?
Hey,
Hey, boys, what's going on?
What up?
Hey, how about those Dodgers? But anyway, in reference to Anthony Richardson, didn't McNabb throw up in the huddle and goes, "All right, on me, ready? Yep, ready, break," and then just went and did it, right? He didn't need a timeout.
I mean,
he didn't need a break.
McNabb even ran out of steam in the Super Bowl, but still stayed on the field. So yeah, that is interesting. I'm sure that will be talked about more.